The name of the show is not an accident, and it's not a knock on hard work. Hard work is the one thing organizations I work with are never short on. The city clerk that stays late, the executive director that writes at the kitchen table after dinner. The effort is real, and it's often heroic. And it still comes up short so often that capable people start to wonder what they are doing wrong. Here's the answer, and it's a relief once you hear it. They're not doing anything wrong. They're pulling on the wrong lever. Hard work is a lever, but it's not the one that closes the gap between a strong organization and a funded one. Today we talk about the lever that actually moves it. You're listening to Hard Work Doesn't Win Grants, a podcast by the Grant Project. I'm Kat Riggs, founder of the Grant Project, where we help local governments and nonprofits build the systems, strategy, and compliance that competitive grant funding requires. Today, I want to take on the single most expensive misunderstanding in grant work, which is the belief that the results are not there yet. The answer is just to try harder. It's an understandable belief because effort has solved a lot of problems for you before. But readiness is a different kind of problem, and effort is the wrong tool for it. By the end of this episode, you'll understand why working harder cannot close a readiness gap, but what actually can, and one small thing you can do this week to start pulling that lever. Let's get into it. Let me describe the pattern, because you've probably lived it. An opportunity appears, the organization decides to go for it, and the way you goes for it is by pouring in tons of effort. Late nights, weekend work, one or two people carrying an enormous load, running on determination and coffee, because the work matters and the deadlines are real. The application goes out, it was absolutely exhausting to produce, and whether or not it wins, the organization files away a quiet lesson. Next time, we work even harder. And here's why that lesson is a trap. The readiness gap is structural. It's the absence of a system that should already exist. Financials that can separate grant dollars, a policy adopted in advance, a registration kept current, an outcome documented while it was fresh. None of those can be manufactured by effort at the deadline because they are not tasks you do quickly under pressure. They are conditions that either exist or do not. They're built over time or they're not built at all. You cannot outwork a missing chart of accounts at 11 o'clock at night before the submission. The structure was needed months ago. So what does all that deadline effort actually buy you? It buys you a worse version of the work, produced under stress by people who are being asked to invent readiness and write an application at the exact same time. The financials get assembled in a hurry instead of retrieved cleanly. The budget rests on estimates instead of documented methods. And the narrative gets written by someone who is also simultaneously trying to reconstruct 3 years of records. Effort is not free here. It's being spent on papering over a structural gap, which is the most expensive place to spend it and least likely for it to hold up. And there's a human cost that matters just as much as the grant outcome. When the only lever an organization knows how to pull is harder work, it burns through its best people. The person who always comes through becomes a single point of failure the whole operation depends on. And it's not sustainable, and it's not fair to them, and it's not a foundation you can build a funding strategy on. If your plan for winning grants is that a few devoted people will keep working past their limits, you don't have a plan. You have a countdown. So if effort is the wrong lever, let me tell you what the right one is. And it's going to sound almost too simple. The right lever is a system. The lever that closes the readiness gap is a system. And I use that word deliberately in everything I teach. So let me define it plainly, because it's less intimidating than it sounds. A system is anything that carries a decision or a task so a person does not have to. That's the whole definition. A written procedure is a system. A renewal calendar is a system. A maintained library of templates is a system. A standing report that runs on a schedule is a system. None of these are expensive, and none of these requires new software or a bigger team. Each one simply takes a decision that used to live in a person's head and moves it into a structure that holds it. Think about what that does. When a task is carried by a system, it stops depending on whether someone remembers, whether someone has time, or whether the one person who knows how it works happens to be in the building that day. A renewal date on a shared calendar with a name owner does not forget. A written procurement procedure does not need the veteran staffer to walk a new hire through it. A template that already exists does not have to be reinvented under deadline. The system does the remembering and the reasoning, so your people do not have to spend their finite attention on it. Let me make this concrete. Imagine the difference between two organizations facing the same registration renewal. In the first, keeping SAM.gov active depends on someone remembering and noticing that it's expiring, which eventually someone does not notice. Then the registration lapses the week of a submission, and all things fall apart. In the second, the renewal date sits on a shared calendar. It's assigned to a specific person and a backup person, and it simply just gets done quietly, on time, every time, without anyone having to hold it in their memory all year. Same task, completely different reliability. The difference is not that the second organization has more diligent people. It's that the second organization does not require diligence because the system carries the load. That's the shift I want you to feel. A system is not bureaucracy, and it's not more work. It's the opposite. It's the thing that lets ordinary, busy, overextended people produce reliable results because the structure holds the parts that a human should not have to hold. Every strong organization you've ever admired for its grant work is not powered by superhuman staffers. It's powered by systems that make ordinary staff look superhuman. Which brings me to the reframe at the center of this whole show, and I want to say it as plainly as I can. When results are not there, the instinct is to look at people. Do we need someone who's more experienced? Is someone not working hard enough? Do we need to find that rare person who can just do it all? I want to gently turn that instinct all the way around because it points in the wrong direction. A readiness gap is almost never a people problem. It's a systems opportunity. And here's what I mean. In a local government or a nonprofit, the people who touch grants are almost always wearing several hats at once. The clerk is also the grant manager. The finance director is also the compliance officer. The program lead is also handling procurement. These are capable, committed people who are already doing 2 or 3 jobs. Asking them also, through sheer effort, to hold every readiness requirement in their heads is not a plan for success. It's a plan for exhaustion. The gap is not there because your people are lacking. The gap is there because the structure that should support them was never built. And that should feel like a relief because it changes what the work is. If the problem were your people, the solution would be painful and slow. Hire differently, ask more of everyone, hope for a hero. But the problem is not your people, so the solution is completely different. You build a system once and it keeps working. You write the procedure one time and it onboards every future staff member. You set the renewal calendar one time and it protects every future deadline. The effort is front-loaded and finite, and then it pays out indefinitely, quietly, without anyone asking anything more of the people who are already stretched very thin. This is why systems do not ask more of your team. They ask less. Every decision a system carries is a decision your people no longer have to make under pressure. Every task a system holds is attention your people get back to spend on actual work, the mission work, the reason why they signed up for these jobs in the first place. This is the through line of everything that I teach. We are not going to close your readiness gap by asking anyone to work harder. There is no harder available, and it wouldn't work anyway. We're going to close it by building structures that let your good, committed, already hardworking people finally get the results their effort deserves. So here's your one thing this week, and it's small on purpose. Pick one recurring grant task that currently lives in someone's memory. It could be how a purchase gets approved, how a new award gets set up, how a report gets pulled. Just one. Write it down in plain steps as a simple procedure that anyone could follow. And that's it. You've just turned one fragile piece of institutional knowledge into a system and taken one decision off a person's shoulders permanently. And that's the lever. You pull it one task at a time. If you want a steady supply of practical tools and federal funding insight to keep building on, subscribe to the Grant Project newsletter. It delivers exactly this kind of readiness thinking to your inbox every week, so your local government or nonprofit stays one step ahead of every deadline and every rule change. Remember that small actionable steps lead to big changes in your readiness. That's it for this episode of Hard Work Doesn't Win Grants. If it gave you something useful, share it with someone on your team. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. The Grant Project helps local governments and nonprofits build the readiness, strategy, and compliance that secures funding for the long term. You'll find free guides and a way to work with us at thegrantproject.com. Until next time, remember, hard work doesn't win grants, readiness does.